The distress beacon had been broadcasting for 3 solar cycles when the first ship finally appeared on the sensors of the crippled Valorian colony vessel. Administrator Kelth's primary appendages trembled with relief as he watched the approaching craft through the observation portal, his crystalline eyes reflecting the distant starlight. "They came," he whispered to his second-in-command, Mira. Someone actually came. The Valorian people were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and scholars, their reputation built on centuries of diplomatic excellence and cultural exchange. They had never made enemies, never engaged in conflict, never given anyone reason to wish them harm. Yet here they were, stranded in the void between stars, their engine core shattered by a rogue asteroid that had torn through their shields like tissue paper. 73,000 souls aboard. 12 days of life support remaining. And until this moment, not a single response to their desperate calls for aid. Kelth had sent transmissions to every nearby civilization. The Corthians, whose territory they were closest to, had sent only a terse message. Regrettable. Resources currently allocated elsewhere. The Xanathi Empire, known for their merchant fleets, had quoted an extraction fee that exceeded the colony's entire treasury 3 times over. Even the Collective of Free Worlds, despite their lofty proclamations of unity and mutual aid, had cited procedural complications that would take weeks to resolve, weeks they did not have. The approaching vessel grew larger in the viewport, and Kelth felt his relief curdle into something else. "Something cold. Administrator," Mira's voice quavered. "That signature, those markings." "I know," Kelth replied quietly. It was a human ship. Every species in the galaxy knew about humans. They were the newcomers, the strange bipedal creatures from a heavy-gravity death world who had somehow clawed their way into space, despite every logical reason they should have destroyed themselves first. They were the species that other species warned their young about in cautionary tales. Humans, it was said, were descended from persistence predators. They had evolved to chase prey across vast distances until their quarry collapsed from exhaustion. Their planet was a hellscape of extreme weather, deadly predators, and toxic biology. Yet they had not just survived but thrived, conquering every environment from frozen poles to scorching deserts. Worse still were the stories of human wars. While other species fought with the cold efficiency of logic and limited objectives, humans fought with a terrifying passion that bordered on insanity. They had names for it: total war, scorched earth, mutually assured destruction, concepts that made civilized species recoil in horror. The human ship docked with a mechanical precision that somehow felt aggressive. Kelth straightened his robes and moved to the airlock, Mira following reluctantly behind. They had no choice. The humans were here, and they were the only ones who had answered. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. 3 humans stepped through, their faces obscured by transparent helmets. The leader, a female if Kelth remembered human dimorphism correctly, removed her helmet and smiled. It was meant to be friendly, Kelth knew, but the sight of those blunt teeth in that predator's face sent an instinctive spike of fear through his nervous system. "Administrator Kelth?" Her voice was surprisingly soft. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the UNSS Nightingale. We received your distress call." "Captain Chen," Kelth managed, fighting to keep his voice steady. "We are grateful for your response." The captain's eyes, those forward-facing hunter's eyes, scanned the damaged corridor behind him. "How many aboard?" 73,216. Something flickered across the human's face. "And life support?" 12 days. Perhaps 13 if we reduce activity to minimum levels. The captain turned to her companions and began speaking in rapid human language. Kelth caught only fragments through his translator. Words that seemed both martial and medical. Triage, trauma teams, engineering corps, emergency protocols. Within hours, the human response became clear, and it was nothing like Kelth had imagined. The humans were terrifying. Yes, but not in the way the story suggested. They were terrifying in their efficiency, in their absolute refusal to accept failure. They moved through the damaged ship like a force of nature, their heavy world strength allowing them to shift debris that would have required Valorian machinery. Their medical teams worked with the intensity that bordered on frightening, treating the injured with a competence that spoke of far too much experience with trauma. More human ships arrived. Not warships, but vessels hastily converted from whatever had been nearest. A mining barge, 2 research vessels, even a passenger liner that had diverted from its route. Each brought supplies, engineers, medical personnel. The humans called it a civilian response, but Kelth saw the military precision in their coordination. Why? He finally asked Captain Chen as they stood in the observation deck, watching human engineers swarming over the Valorian vessel's damaged engine core in hardened vacuum suits. Why come at all? We are nothing to you. Strangers, not even allies. Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, her eyes distant. There's an old saying from Earth, no one gets left behind. It's a military phrase originally, but it means more than that to us. She turned to face him. We came from a world that tried very hard to kill us, Administrator. Every single day in 1,000 different ways. We learned early that when someone falls, you pick them up. Because next time it might be you who needs the hand. But the stories, Kelth protested. The wars. The violence. Your species is feared throughout the galaxy. We are capable of terrible things, Chen admitted, and there was a weight in her voice that spoke of personal knowledge. When we're afraid, when we're angry, when we're protecting what we love, we can be monsters. She looked back at the engineers, at the human medical teams moving through the Valorian ship's corridors, at the supply vessels still arriving. But that same intensity, that same refusal to quit, that same willingness to throw ourselves into danger. It goes both ways. We'll fight like demons to destroy our enemies, but we'll fight just as hard to save strangers. Kelth watched a human engineer, barely out of adolescence by their species standards, risk his life to stabilize a failing support beam that protected a Valorian nursery. You are a contradiction, he said softly. We're human, Chen replied with that predator's smile. It's what we do. 17 days later, the Valorian colony ship limped into dock at New Terra Station under its own power, escorted by a small flotilla of human vessels. Not a single Valorian had been lost. The human repair teams had not only fixed the critical systems but had improved several others, refusing any payment beyond fuel and supplies. As Administrator Kelth prepared to disembark, he composed a message to the Galactic Council. It would detail everything that had happened, but it would begin with a single truth that he now understood in his core. Yes, humans were terrifying, but perhaps the galaxy had been afraid of the wrong things. Perhaps the most terrifying thing about humans was not their capacity for violence, but their capacity for compassion. Their willingness to dive into danger not for conquest or glory, but simply because someone somewhere needed help, and they were the only ones who showed up.